In every disappearance, there's a life that existed long before the headlines. A life filled with routines, people, memories. A life that mattered. Before the night that would change everything. Brandon Lawson was like many young men in West Texas. He was a father, a partner, a brother. People say he had a laugh that filled a room, and a stubbornness that sometimes matched his big heart. He grew up in Crowley, Texas, one of 4 children in a close-knit family. Those who knew him describe him as fun-loving, protective, the kind of person who'd give you his last dollar if you needed it. Brandon was born on November 18, 1986. Raised with both parents present in his childhood, life wasn't perfect, but there was love in the home. Like many boys growing up in Texas, he loved the outdoors. Mud on his boots, wind on his face, and big dreams that stretched beyond small-town roads. He wasn't an orphan. He wasn't alone. He had people who cared deeply about him. As he grew older, he stepped into adulthood quickly, working in the oil fields, long hours under harsh sun, sending paychecks home to support the people he loved. Brandon was in a long-term relationship with Ledessa Lofton. Together, they built a family, welcoming 3 children into their world. Friends say he loved his kids fiercely. Even on the hard days, life wasn't flawless. Bills stacked up, work was exhausting, and stress was real. There were arguments, like any couple, especially under financial pressure. But love was the thread that held them together most days. But Brandon also wrestled with his own demons. He had past issues with substance use, moments where he tried to get clean, and moments he struggled again. Not a monster, not a ghost, just a man trying to be better than yesterday. Those who knew him say he was trying to stay present, trying to fix mistakes, trying to keep his family together. No one could have predicted what was coming. Because on August 8, 2013, Brandon's life would take a sudden turn. That evening began like countless others. A late-night argument. A man leaving home to cool off. Nothing unusual. Until it was. But what happened next would spark one of the most confounding mysteries in recent Texas history. A phone call. A truck abandoned on a rural highway. And a voice on the other end that sounded afraid. If someone you loved walked out the door and never returned, how long would you hold on to hope? August 8, 2013, near San Angelo, Texas. A night like any other? Until it wasn't. At home, tensions had been rising. Brandon and Ledessa argued that evening, a fight born from weeks of stress, exhaustion, and the weight of everyday life. No fists, no violence. Just 2 people under pressure, saying things they might later regret. He decided to leave, cool off, breathe, clear his head. It was a decision many of us might make in anger. But this one would carry consequences no one saw coming. Brandon took his truck and headed out at around 11:54 p.m. He drove toward his father's house in Crowley, nearly 45 minutes away. The road stretched dark under a moonless sky. Texas plains on both sides, quiet, empty, vast. As the miles passed, a strange shift took place. Some say he sounded unsettled on the phone later that night. Nervous, even. And then, somewhere along Highway 277, his truck ran out of gas. A simple problem, one anyone could face. Except what followed was anything but simple. Just after midnight, Brandon called his brother, Kyle Lawson. He told him he ran out of fuel and needed help. Kyle agreed to bring gas, a routine rescue between brothers. But Brandon's tone wasn't casual. It felt urgent. He said he was out here, alone, on a dark stretch of road with nothing around him but brush and barbed wire. Minutes passed. Brandon made calls to Ledessa, to others, short, tense conversations. Something had changed. Was someone there with him? Was he afraid of something in the dark? Or was it all in his voice, amplified by stress? He reportedly told his brother, at one point that he was being chased. But by who or what, we still don't know. Some say drugs influenced his behavior that night. Others believe he saw something or someone out there. Then came the moment that still echoes across the internet today. 12:50 a.m. Brandon dialed 911. The call lasted 43 seconds. It's hard to understand. Background noise, slurred speech, broken sentences. If you listen closely, you hear panic or confusion or both. He said words many investigators still debate. I ran into somebody. We're out here going toward Abilene. Please hurry. To this day, people argue over those lines. Was he hiding from someone? Was someone else present? Or was Brandon simply lost in the dark, scared, hurt, or hallucinating? Whatever happened on that call, it was the last time anyone heard Brandon Lawson's voice alive. Minutes after the 911 call, the world went quiet again. No more messages. No more calls from Brandon. At around 1:10 a.m., Brandon's brother Kyle and Kyle's girlfriend, Audrey, arrived at Highway 277, a lonely two-lane road surrounded by tall grass and thick brush. They saw Brandon's truck pulled over on the shoulder. Driver's door unlocked. Keys missing. No Brandon. It was as if he stepped out and walked away. Into the darkness. Kyle said he expected to see his brother waiting by the truck, annoyed, cold, maybe frustrated. Instead, there was only silence. He tried calling Brandon again and again. Sometimes he would pick up, but the sounds were fragmented, panting, short phrases. And then the line would drop. At 1:18 a.m., a deputy from Coke County Sheriff's Office stopped to check on the truck. Kyle explained that his brother had run out of gas and was somewhere nearby, but without signs of distress. No blood, no tracks, no struggle. Officers assumed Brandon was simply hiding in the bushes or had walked off temporarily. Some believe authorities underestimated the situation. Others argue they handled protocol correctly, given what they saw. Either way, Brandon was out there, somewhere in the dark. This moment is painful to hear in hindsight. Brandon reportedly told Kyle over the phone, I'm right here, I see you. Yet nobody could see him. A heartbreaking paradox. He could see them, but they couldn't find him. Kyle and the officer searched with flashlights, calling out his name, but the thick brush swallowed the sound. Believing his brother might be hiding due to an outstanding warrant, Kyle feared Brandon wouldn't come out if police were nearby, so Kyle drove around, hoping to spot him. He even left gas there, expecting Brandon to return. But hours passed, still no sign, still no footsteps leading away, still no Brandon. As night turned into morning, concern shifted to panic. This wasn't just a man cooling off after an argument anymore. Something was wrong. Family phone calls, worry, confusion, hope fading. The highway was searched. Neighbors alerted. But the only trace left was the truck, quiet, waiting, like a question no one could answer. If someone said they could see you in the dark, but you couldn't see them, what would your mind think happened out there? Brandon Lawson seemed to vanish into open space, without a sound, without a witness, without a trail. As days passed with no sign of Brandon, speculation began to grow like the brush that surrounded Highway 277. Everyone had a theory, but none could be proven. The 911 recording became the heart of the mystery. People across the internet dissected it, slowed it down, enhanced it, argued line by line. Some heard the words, I ran into them. Others heard, I ran from them. Some even claimed they heard more than one voice in the background. But these interpretations remain unconfirmed. No official report ever confirmed the presence of a second voice or another person at the scene. What we have is one call, one man, and a puzzle with missing pieces. One theory suggests Brandon encountered someone that night, a person or group on that remote stretch of road. Maybe an accident, a confrontation, a misunderstanding that spiraled. Supporters of this theory point to his tone, the fear, the urgency, and the haunting phrase, "I need the cops." But critics argue that fear alone is not evidence of another person. A voice can shake for many reasons: cold, panic, confusion, or drugs. Another theory suggests Brandon might have been under the influence. Some reports mention drug use in his past, and that he may have relapsed shortly before the disappearance. If he was impaired, he might have misinterpreted shapes, shadows, or sounds. He could have panicked, run into the brush, and gotten lost. Supporters say this could explain why he sounded frightened, why he left his truck, and why he didn't return, even with help just feet away. But again, this theory explains behavior, not disappearance. It's also possible Brandon was injured, maybe from a fall or exhaustion, and couldn't call out for help. The terrain near the highway is rough. Steep drops, thick vegetation, rattlesnakes, wild hogs. If he collapsed or became unconscious, searchers might have walked past him without knowing. But that raises the most painful question. How does a grown man vanish within sight of his own family? Some believe Brandon hid intentionally. He had an outstanding felony warrant, not for violence, but for a prior drug charge. This led some to propose that when he saw police lights, he may have run deeper into the dark to avoid arrest, even if he was injured or afraid. But would he abandon his truck, his brother, and the chance to go home to the people he loved? Logic strains under this theory, unless something else terrified him more than being detained. What followed was the most unsettling part of all. No more calls. No more sightings. No footprints, no clothing, no objects left behind. Nothing. In mysteries, silence is loud. Too loud. 4 theories. Dozens of debates. No answers. Which theory feels closest to the truth? And what detail convinces you the most? Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And still, Brandon Lawson was gone. Search teams combed the area multiple times, volunteers, law enforcement, dogs, helicopters when available. They walked fences, pushed through brush, scanned creeks and ravines. More than once, searchers reported feeling like he had to be there, somewhere just out of reach. But every sweep ended with the same result: silence. At home, phones were never silenced. Lights stayed on at night. Family sat by windows, waiting for a knock that never came. His partner, Ledessa, kept his clothes in drawers, his photos on walls, his name alive in conversation, hoping their children would grow up remembering not a mystery, but a father. Hope became a ritual. Every call from an unknown number made hearts race. Every rumor stung. Every dead lead reopened wounds. People online began analyzing the case. Armchair detectives debated theories late into the night. Podcasts covered the story. True crime forums broke down the 911 call frame by frame. Attention brought awareness, but awareness didn't bring Brandon home. 1 year passed. Then 2. Eventually, it became nearly a decade. For 10 years, his family lived in a world split in 2. Life before Brandon disappeared, and life after. Birthdays came. Holidays came. New memories were built, with one empty seat at every table. Imagine carrying love for someone who may no longer be alive, yet never having proof. Imagine replaying the last phone call, wondering what you missed. No goodbye. No evidence. Only absence. For many, grief is final. It comes with answers. But for the Lawson family, grief never arrived cleanly. It hovered like a question that hurt to ask, did he suffer? Was he alone? Could he still be out there? If you were his family, would you hold on to hope or try to move forward? How long is too long to wait for answers? Then, nearly 10 years later, everything changed with one discovery. As Kyle and the tow truck driver searched the dark roadside, they started shouting Brandon's name into the night. No answer, no movement, no shadow stepping forward. Just that same massive emptiness stretching across West Texas. Minutes passed, then more, and still nothing. The officer began sweeping the area with his flashlight, expecting Brandon to emerge at any moment. After all, he said he was just right here, but Brandon didn't walk out. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. It was as if, in less than 15 minutes, he vanished into thin air. Kyle tried calling him, straight to voicemail. His girlfriend Ladessa tried calling too. No response. Even 911 dispatch attempted multiple follow-ups. Silence. Brandon Lawson, a 26-year-old father who only an hour earlier was joking with his brother, was suddenly gone. This wasn't just a missing person situation. This was something stranger, because there were no footprints leading into the field. No trail. No confirmed sighting after the officer left. Just that abandoned truck on the side of the road, with Brandon's wallet and keys still inside. Why would a man hiding from police, if that was truly the case, leave everything he owned behind? Illogical, inconsistent, disturbing. And later investigations revealed something even more chilling. Multiple phone calls pinged Brandon's cell for over 24 hours after he disappeared, suggesting the device stayed powered on, somewhere out there in the West Texas darkness. Was he alive during those hours? Was someone else with that phone? Or did something happen shortly after Kyle and the officer drove away? Whatever the truth is, Brandon Lawson was never seen again. Some believe Brandon got lost in the brush and succumbed to exhaustion. Others believe he was running from someone or something that night. And a third group believes he met foul play. All theories exist, none proven. But one question hangs over this case like fog over a cold highway. How does a man on the phone saying, "I'm bleeding," simply disappear within sight of police without leaving a single trace? Then here's the real mystery. If Brandon really was 10 minutes up the road, why couldn't anyone find him? Even with flashlights and patrol cars feet away? Could Brandon have been hiding from the very people trying to save him? Or is there something deeper no one has uncovered? Would you run into the darkness for help? Or hide? Morning light finally washed over Route 277, revealing the harsh truth no one wanted to accept. Brandon Lawson, father of 4, oil field worker, son, brother, was nowhere to be found. Deputies, volunteers, and later even helicopters scanned the rugged pasture on both sides of the highway. The area was wide, flat, and open, meaning a person hiding should have been visible from meters away. But search teams found no torn clothing, no footprints, no blood, nothing. It was as if Brandon stepped off the map. While investigators questioned family and friends, the 911 call began spreading online and became the center of the public's obsession. Listeners replayed it again and again, slowing it down, enhancing audio, trying to decipher the chaotic whisper. Was Brandon saying, "I ran into them," or "I'm in the field"? Was it, "I need the cops," or "I need a ride"? Two interpretations, two different possibilities, two completely different outcomes. Theory 1, Brandon was being chased. Maybe by strangers. Maybe by someone he knew. Maybe by the same people he mentioned in that panicked voice. Theory 2, Brandon was disoriented, scared, possibly hallucinating from stimulant use and exhaustion, and accidentally walked too far to be found. Both theories have traction. Neither solves the puzzle. As searches continued, Ladessa, the woman who loved him despite the fights, was tormented by one thought. What if Brandon was hurt, alive, and waiting for rescue that never reached him? And here's where the case twists again. Despite the massive open land, Tracking dogs could not pick up a reliable scent trail, almost as if Brandon never left the roadway, or never stayed in one piece of land long enough to leave a trail. Days became weeks. Weeks stretched into years. And still the Lawson family set chairs at holidays hoping Brandon would walk through the door, apologizing for scaring everyone. But he never did. Something happened that night, something that kept a grown man from returning home, calling back, or being found for over a decade. Which theory makes more sense to you? Did Brandon truly run into danger that night? Or was he already running from it? What do you believe was happening during those silent hours after the phone went dead? Was Brandon alive somewhere in that field, watching lights pass by? Or was he already gone long before sunrise? But as weeks turned into months, something strange began to happen. Brandon's case refused to fade, not because police were actively updating it, but because the public wouldn't let it rest. Strangers, people who never met Brandon, began replaying his 911 call over and over, slowing it down, enhancing the audio, arguing online late into the night. Everyone was trying to hear one thing. What exactly was he saying? Who was he running from? Was he scared, or injured, or hiding? Some listeners believe they hear him say, "We're not talking to them." Others claim he said, "I ran into somebody." And then, a chilling line debated for years. "Please hurry." Or was it, "They're here." The audio is muddy. The wind is loud. The call is chaotic, interrupted, desperate. But one thing is certain. Brandon was in distress. The online community became detectives. People analyzed maps, satellite shots, police logs. Some drove out to the same rural route at night, recording sound tests to match the 911 audio. Forums buzzed with theories. Was he hiding from someone in the dark brush? Did he see something he shouldn't have? Was someone following him? Others suggested a simpler, more tragic possibility. Maybe Brandon got lost in the fields, and the harsh Texas night swallowed him whole. But then another detail fueled the fire. His phone kept ringing for hours after he vanished. Calls didn't go straight to voicemail. They rang first, as if the device was still powered on. Somewhere. To many, that meant hope. To others, it meant mystery. The public obsession grew. Videos, podcasts, Reddit threads, amateur analysts, all trying to solve a puzzle frozen in time. It was no longer just a missing person case. It was becoming one of the most dissected 911 calls in true crime history. And yet, for his family, this wasn't entertainment. It was life. It was pain. It was waiting every day for a phone that never rang. Imagine being his parents, sleeping with your phone beside you just in case. Imagine his children growing up with questions instead of memories. This case didn't go cold quietly. It stayed loud, haunting, unanswered. And almost a decade would pass before something finally changed. Brandon Lawson had been missing for years now. The internet was obsessed. Theories were endless. But where was Brandon? Before we move forward, if you were one of the investigators back then, which theory would you chase first? Did he meet someone dangerous that night? Or did he simply get lost and succumb to the elements? Hold that thought, because in the next act, a discovery reshapes everything. Years passed. Birthdays came and went. Holidays, too. His children, once small enough to be carried, were now old enough to ask harder questions. And still, no Brandon. Search parties dwindled. Leads dried up. But the family never truly stopped. They pushed, emailed, begged for help, kept his story alive online. Then, something unexpected happened. After nearly 8 long years, in 2022, law enforcement returned to private land, a region near where Brandon went missing. A location that had been searched before, but never fully cleared due to thick brush and unforgiving terrain. And there, near the very area where he vanished, remains were discovered. Testing would later indicate they were likely Brandon Lawson. After years of uncertainty, silence, and searching, the family finally had something resembling answers. Not the return they prayed for, not the reunion they dreamt of, but an end to the not knowing. No dramatic arrest, no confirmed confrontation, no solved motive. Just a quiet discovery in the Texas grasslands, the same land that held his final footsteps. Some say the terrain itself defeated him. Miles of rough brush, heat by day, cold by night. Others believe he may have been disoriented, possibly injured, possibly running from something real or perceived. Investigators did not rule it a homicide. They did not label it an accident. They simply confirmed what they could and left a space for what we may never know. And for Cristal, his partner, their children, and everyone who held on to hope, it was closure, but the painful kind. Sometimes the truth arrives without explanation. Sometimes answers come without clarity. And even when you find what you are searching for, it doesn't always heal what was lost. Brandon was found, but the truth of that night remains tangled in the dark. So the final question remains, what really happened out there? Was Brandon running from someone? Or from panic? From danger? Or from his own fear? And more importantly, can a case be considered closed when the story still doesn't make sense? Because this isn't just about what happened. It's about why it still matters. Brandon Lawson's story does not end with answers. It ends with a family who waited nearly a decade for news. It ends with a 911 recording that people still debate today. It ends in the silence of a Texas night, the same night that changed everything. But it also leaves behind something else, a reminder that even ordinary moments can turn unexpected, that life can shift from normal to terrifying in a single phone call, that people do not just vanish, they leave shockwaves behind. Brandon was a father, a partner, a son, a human being caught in a moment we may never fully understand. And while his remains were found, the meaning of his final words still echo. Was he calling for help? Was he warning someone? Was he confused? Or was he afraid? All we have is the audio. A broken transmission across time. A young man alone in the dark, asking for help that came too late. His family has spoken openly about forgiveness, grief, and healing. They kept his memory alive when the world moved on. And today, his story is told not for spectacle, but so that he is not forgotten. Because behind every missing poster is a life, a voice, a family waiting on the other end of a phone that never rings. For Brandon, answers came, but not clarity. Closure arrived, but not peace. And maybe some stories remain open for a reason. After hearing this case, what do you believe happened that night? Was Brandon Lawson running from someone, or toward safety that he never reached? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters here. And if you want more real cases like this, subscribe and stay tuned. Because sometimes, the most haunting crimes are the ones that still whisper in the dark.